When you are thinking of executing your digital transformation projects, one of the most critical things that you need to figure out is going to be your team. In this video, we talk about different roles and how they fit together in a digital transformation project. So let's dive in. Hello everyone, I'm Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with ERP selection, ERP contract negotiation, ERP implementation, as well as any sort of digital transformation project recoveries. So let's get back to today's topic, which is going to be the roles for digital transformation projects. We have compiled this list based on our experience working in many different engagements, whether you talk about different ERP, e-commerce, or the overarching business transformation initiatives. And we have compiled this list based on our experience as well as some of the interviews that we have conducted with the executives. Now, let's look at the list. Number 10 on our list is going to be change management consultant. And when you talk to anybody, they are going to emphasize the importance of change management during the ERP or digital transformation projects. There is no doubt that change management is critical, and change management is going to be one of the areas that is probably going to drive whether your ERP or digital transformation project is going to be successful or not. But typically, when you look at the change management issues, those issues are going to be the first symptoms that you are going to notice, irrespective of whether you are going to have problem with the design or the architecture of the solution, whether you have any sort of problems overall with the project. Change management is the first thing, because what people are going to do is they will not be able to adopt. They will not like the solution. They will not feel that the solution is going to be a natural fit. So when people talk about the change management issues, they sort of club everything under the change management bucket. Training is important, but what you need to have is you need to align everything, which is going to be your solution, as well as the technology, as well as the business priorities and the business processes, whether you are going to get an external consultant or the internal consultant, depending upon the budget as well as the priorities. But change management consultant is going to be extremely critical for the digital transformation engagements. So that's number 10. Number 9 on our list is going to be the best of breed apps and add-on experts. So when people think about any sort of ERP initiatives, they are always going to think that, okay, I am getting this ERP and I just need one consultant that can do pretty much everything. But typically, ERP consultants, as well as when you talk about different components that you are going to bring into your architecture, each of them are probably going to require different expertise. The larger the solution, the more expertise you are probably going to require for your digital transformation engagements. For example, let's say if you talk about ERP, for ERP, you might require multiple expertise because of the size of the solution. Now, if you talk about some other components in your architecture, which could be your CRM, e-commerce, it could be HCM, for them, you might require one technical consultant or one functional consultant. If it is simply a bolt-on top of ERP, you might think that, you know what, I am getting either SAP Business One, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, and if I get an add-on top of that, the Microsoft or SAP should be able to cover that specific add-on for me. But that is typically not the case, because the developer that has written that add-on is likely to have the knowledge, and typically they are not going to be sharing the code base with the other developers. It's going to be really hard for them to be able to debug, to be able to support your requirements. So that's why you need the best of breed apps and add-on experts as part of your team. So that's number 9. Now, number 8 on our list is going to be ERP Integration Consultants. Again, when you think of any of the ERP projects, you are probably going to be thinking, I am installing just this one giant software and I am going to get these ERP consultants and they should be able to cover any sort of integration needs as well. Typically, most of the ERP systems that we have in the market, they were very Windows centric systems, and typically the consultants that used to work on these systems did not require the complex integration technologies or complex enterprise architecture patterns, and that's why they were not as skilled with the integration issues. For example, let's say if you talk about how to control your master data across the architecture, or if you talk about how to create the vendor agnostic integration architecture, that is going to set the clear boundaries of each of the systems in the architecture and going to work seamlessly. Now, that requires far broader skill set and understanding of different tools and technologies that you are going to have in your architecture. It also requires understanding of the integration patterns in terms of synchronous versus asynchronous communication, webhooks versus your enterprise-centric protocols. If you have MES in your architecture, then you probably require understanding of MQTT or any other protocols that might be relevant for the operational technologies. So the integration consultants typically maintain the knowledge very deeply, and typically they are not going to have as much depth with the functionality as well as the technicals of the system itself when you look at any sort of ERP or CRM systems. So their role is going to be very different. So you might require an integration consultant as part of your ERP or the digital transformation projects. So that's number 8. Now, number 7 on our list is going to be ERP Technical Consultants. ERP Technical Consultants are different from your ERP integration or best of breed consultants. Typically, ERP Technical Consultants focus right within the application, which means that, let's say, if you are going to be customizing any sort of form, you need to build any reports inside the ERP system, or you need to build the custom functionality inside ERP system, then ERP technical consultants are going to be relevant. If you are using the majority of the functionality out of the box, then you might not require as much development expertise or the technical expertise from the ERP perspective. You are still going to be integrating with the other systems that you might have in the architecture. So ERP technical consultants are going to be super relevant as well, depending upon the scope, depending upon the customization needs for your project, and that probably you are going to require as part of your digital transformation engagements. So that's number 7. Now, number 6 is going to be the functional consultant. And functional consultants are going to be super critical as well. Typically, the ERP consultants that you are going to have as part of the project, there might be multiple functional consultants that you might require. And they typically have the educational background in the specific process area that they might have expertise in. For example, your finance consultants are likely to have some sort of accounting educational background. Your supply chain consultants are likely to have some sort of supply chain educational background as well as degree. Now, when you compare this with ERP technical consultants, those technical consultants are typically going to be the software engineers. They understand how to program, but they don't necessarily understand the business functionality or the business processes of your ERP. So you are probably going to require many functional consultant, and there might be some generalists as well who might be able to support many different areas. But the larger the solution is going to be, the more consultants you are going to require. So that's why it is really important to understand when you are going to be installing a large solution in your architecture, you might end up getting a lot more consultants, which becomes very expensive because some of these solutions are very, very, very deep in supply chain, sales, planning. So some of these consultants, they have focused on just one area in their entire life. The only thing they really understand is that specific area, and they are going to be looking from their lenses whenever they are going to be solving any problems. So functional consultants are great, but you need to understand how they are going to fit in your team and where you should be utilizing them. So you are definitely going to be needing functional consultants in your digital transformation projects. How many is going to be a question based on the solution that you are implementing. So that's number 6. Now, number 5 is perhaps the most critical role that you are going to have in your digital transformation team, and that is the vendor solution agnostic ERP consultant, enterprise architect, principal functional consultant. And the role of this particular person is going to be to act as more of the CIO. If you have a CIO, then they might act as the advisor, because again, your internal CIO may not have seen as many implementation in his or her life, and even if they have seen a lot in their past, they are not seeing on a daily basis. And typically with most digital transformation engagements, since the functionality is getting upgraded on a daily basis, you need to keep yourself updated with the implementation failure, what is happening in the ERP industry or the digital transformation industry, to be able to make the informed decision that is going to be required for your enterprise architecture. Now, the vendor or solution agnostic ERP consultant is equally critical because they are the ones who are going to be setting the tone of your design of the architecture. Typically, each of the ERP technical functional consultant, integration consultants, they are going to be solving the problem from their perspective. And typically, what ends up happening in these digital transformation engagements, everybody tries to pull the architecture in their direction. They are going to be implementing as if they are trying to solve the problem for their function. And typically, when you are looking at that cross-functional view, when you are looking at that enterprise view, the most issues that you are going to see in your digital transformation engagements is going to be because of that missing central view. And that's exactly what vendor agnostic ERP consultant or the enterprise architects are capable of solving. So make sure you have the vendor agnostic consultant on your side. And typically this is going to be the external role. It cannot be your internal role because they are not going to have as much expertise in defining the enterprise architecture, in forecasting the issues that you might see because of any of the integration issues or the enterprise architecture issues. And all of these are going to result in some sort of business process as well as adoption issues. So it's super critical to have the vendor agnostic enterprise architect or the principal functional consultant as part of your team. So that's number 5. Now, number 4 is going to be the internal subject matter experts. And these are the subject matter experts as part of your team. These are the guys who are going to be operations manager, supply chain manager, and these are the people who really maintain the deep knowledge of the as-is processes. The business process owners is the second role that you are also going to have as part of your team. They typically don't have as much knowledge of the as-is processes, and these guys are going to know whether you are hosting a process outside of ERP, how are the shop floor people are utilizing the ERP, or maybe supply chain folks are utilizing the ERP. So your subject matter experts are going to be providing the key inputs, and you need to make sure that they are part of the digital transformation team typically you are looking at roughly 20% of the allocation for these subject matter experts. They need to make sure that they are involved during pre-selection process. The more you are going to involve them, the more adoption you are going to get, the more they will be able to understand why you are making certain decisions the way you are making. So your subject matter experts are going to be super critical. They are also going to be testing the functionality during the implementation phase. So subject matter expert has one of the most critical role for your digital transformation engagement. So that's number 4. Number 3 is going to be the business process owners. These business process owners are going to be making the most critical decisions for their functions. They might not be as much in the weeds, and they are going to be working with subject matter experts to understand the as-is processes as well as problems that people might be facing on the shop floor or while conducting any sort of business processes. But they are the ones who are going to be making the critical decisions for their area. Now, they might be working with the ERP sponsor, and ERP sponsor could be CFO, CEO, and in terms of understanding, what is going to be the cross-functional view. So business process owners typically are going to be your VP of sales, VP of HR, it's going to be VP of supply chain, VP of operations. Those are the people that represent their area. They need to make sure they are able to make the decision. Typically, you are looking at roughly 10% or 5% allocation for these business process owners. They don't necessarily need to test depending upon the size of your organization. If the size is going to be very small, then sometimes business process owners are also going to act as the subject matter expert. But for the most part, if you are going to have a very large organization, their role is going to be really to facilitate the decision making for their area as well as set the tone for the to-be architecture that you are going to be needing as part of your digital transformation. So that's number 3. Now, number 2 is probably going to be the second most critical role as part of your digital transformation team, and that is your ERP Project Manager. And when people think of ERP Project Manager, sometimes they are going to think, I can probably hire somebody from a school and they can probably do the project management responsibilities. From their perspective, the role of project manager is really to set the meetings, really take the notes during the meetings. But project manager typically serves much broader role overall in the digital transformation engagements. Their role is going to be to serve as the cross-functional entity. They should have enough experience and expertise to be able to talk to your business process owners. Otherwise, what is going to happen is these business process owners, depending upon how much clout they have and who has the most clout, they are all going to be dragging the architecture as well as business processes in their direction. And that typically comes at the expense of some of the other functions that you are going to have. So this is where project manager is going to be an extremely critical role to be able to mediate the process, to make sure that if the project manager is sensing any sort of conflict, then they need to bring in the sponsor or the CEO or the CFO who is going to have slightly broader cross-functional expertise overall in the business processes so that the architecture is going to be intact. They also mediate the conversation between your technical teams as well as your functional team, and their expertise is going to be super critical. So if you don't have a project manager who has worked at the executive level, who can talk to many different executives and really build consensus with them, it's going to be really hard for your digital transformation to be successful. And you can have either internal project manager or external project manager depending upon your team. You are still going to be requiring some sort of internal presence for the project manager, even if you hire an external project manager, because this external project manager may not have access to the calendar. Sometimes they are going to be struggling in having the conversation if the person is not really on site. So you could go either way depending upon how strong this person. Sometimes these external people are going to have very strong relationship with your company because they have been working with your company for last 5-10 years. Then they could be treated as more of the internal project manager. But for the most part, the project manager role is going to be extremely critical, and you need to make sure that they have enough qualification under their belt. So that's number 2. Now, number 1 role is going to be the sponsor. A sponsor is always going to be the most critical role, and typically it is going to be served by either the CEO, COO, or CFO, depending upon who is driving the engagement. They are the ones who are responsible for the overall health of the project. They need to chime in whenever there is going to be a conflict between your teams, or if the project manager is not able to build the consensus among teams. They need to make sure that they are involved with the right amount, so that obviously they need to do their day job as well, but they need to make sure that they are able to sort of set the framework. And typically they are going to be working with some of the advisors, such as your independent ERP consultants, who are going to be setting the tone for the project. They are going to set the communication standards, but the role of ERP sponsor is going to be extremely critical. If ERP sponsor is going to be completely disengaged in the project, then obviously it's going to be very hard for the digital transformation engagements. And typically we see a lot of failures just because of that disengagement. Sometimes they are going to be overcommitting themselves with a project, and that is equally risky as well, because your role as the sponsor is to be a leader, to make sure your business process owners have enough freedom to be able to make a decision, but at the same time they are not necessarily overstepping their boundaries. So the role of ERP sponsor is going to be similar to a CEO in an organization, where they are really setting the tone and setting up the organizational structure and setting the roles and responsibilities of everyone, and setting the framework in terms of how the communication is going to be, and in the case of conflict, how those conflicts will be resolved. So you are looking at roughly 5 hours for the ERP sponsor. Typically ERP sponsor is going to be present only in the monthly steering meetings. They don't need to be present during demos. They might set the communication protocol, such as after the demo, they might require some of the key decisions that the team has made. They may want to review that. They may ask questions. They may require one-off meetings. So depending upon the structure of the team, the ERP sponsor plays a very important role, and that's why it is the number 1 role that you need to have as part of your digital transformation project. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to include a link for a detailed article that is going to have much deeper insights regarding these roles and what steps that you need to take for your digital transformation engagements in 2023. If you like these videos, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so that you can get updated with the new videos that we release on a weekly basis. This podcast is also available in the audio form. So if you would like to subscribe, you can do that on your Apple, Spotify, Google. Also, if you haven't checked our digital transformation report for 2023, we are going to include the link of that with this video. On that note, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.